you need a mentor and you need an ally. If you're like me, if you're very well educated, if you have lots of experience, expect them to say that they don't want you.
Hi, it's Daria, and you're watching Conversation, a YouTube channel about newcomers in Canada. And my guest will be Nancy. Originally from Togo, Nancy had spent 20 years in the United States, where she earned her PhD in health services and worked as a policy analyst, professor, and a university director. She came to Canada through the Express Entry program in 2018. Back in the US, you had a successful career and your family. Why did you decide to leave the US for Canada?
I decided to come here because I was sort of getting tired of the ceiling that's in America for Black women. I like to say, like, when I was in the US, it wasn't as though I was in a really bad place. I was in an excellent, amazing place. I had just finished my doctorate. I was a professor part-time. I was also a director at a local college, and then I was also like a consultant. So I had 3 careers going for me. I was making 6 figures. It was going well. It was like on the up and up. But like I said, I knew that, I couldn't, because I know myself. I'm the type of person to, like, I would break and shatter so many ceilings, so many glasses. Like, I'd go to the ultimate top, and I knew that it wouldn't be possible in the US. Like, no matter how many glasses I wanted to break, it just probably wouldn't be possible. And I was looking at, like, when I finished my doctorate, it was in 2017, and I said, in 5 years, can you accomplish what you want to accomplish under this administration? Because I cannot guarantee that they will not choose the same administration again the next voting period. So I asked myself that question, and I realized, like, there's no way I can achieve all the things that I want to achieve under that current administration. In choosing Canada, I also talked to my mom. My mom was like, please be close so that, you're like a stone's throw away from me. So yeah, so that's how I made the decision to come to Canada.
You prepared all the documents for the Express Entry yourself. Why didn't you choose an immigration lawyer or an immigration consultant?
I have a firm belief that you can do everything by yourself if you study the system enough. And also because I come from an academic background. Like, I've spent 10 years in school. So I was like, if I can do 10 years in school, law is not that big of a deal. So I just decided to study everything. And then also, I had experience with lawyers in the US, and I'm sorry to say, but, like, most of the lawyers I met in the US having to do with immigration were just there to take your money. And I realized, like, the same thing they knew is the same thing I have access to, so I can just learn it myself. Yeah.
How would you rate your Express Entry experience?
Out of 10 stars, I think I'd rate it 10. It was, like I said, it was easy enough for me to do it by myself. I mean, for someone who's been through the immigration system in the US, like, I'd probably rate it at a 20 out of 10, because the US immigration system is so convoluted, but the Canadian immigration system is not convoluted. They're giving you all the tools that you need on their website, and they even give you a number that you can call if you get confused. And it was just so, it was a breeze for me, a welcome breeze almost.
Quite often, immigrants expect that in Canada they will be able to pick their career at a level at which they had it back in their home countries. Did it work out for you as someone who had 3 successful careers back in the US?
It didn't work out. I just want everybody to know that it did not work out at all. I came here with the expectation of either I was going to be a professor here, or I was going to have a comparable career in academia, in the university system, or that I was even going to be a data analyst or a data scientist. And I did everything. Like, I will say though, before I moved here, I got an amazing job offer. It was very much the job that I could keep for the next 5 years and advance in. And it was also in international relations, which is something that my consulting firm deals with. So that was the perfect role for me. I advanced through all the different phases of interviews. I even went to the last phase where they give you the assignment to do. So I knew I was like one of the finalists, and it broke my heart right before I moved to Canada, like a few months before I moved to Canada. I got an email back saying, unfortunately, the position is no longer available. So unfortunately, I won't be able to join the. So since that day, I would say that I've had struggles finding jobs that are at my level. Like I went from making 6 figures in the US to making, I want to say 1/5 of what I was making in the US. I'm currently making 1/5 of what I was making in the US. And initially, when I got the current job that I got, I was angry with myself. I was very disappointed in myself because I'm very career focused. I'm very much the type of person that is gung ho for my career. And to me, I'm just going to say it. It was an insult to my intelligence. And I was insulting myself. And I was like, wait, you left this for this? Really, Nancy? So I was so hard on myself in the beginning, extremely hard on myself. And I told myself, like, I can't believe you made the worst mistake of your life. You just killed your entire career. And I had that thought in my head for, I want to say 7 to 8 months. And then I went back to my country, which is Togo. And, I got a better perspective of what I was doing with my life. I got a better perspective of what I had achieved, because I'm so hard on myself that I don't recognize the achievements that I've done. And when I did that and I took a break from North America and finally went back to like Africa and got to see that, wait a minute, I am an African woman that has achieved so much within the span of literally 28 years, and I've done good. That's when I was like, Nancy, you did well. And when I realized that and I came back, I started using that new perspective to guide how I would spend my time in Canada. So it was no longer just me focusing on finding a comparable job in Canada. It was more of me being grateful that I was in Canada, and then using that as a way for me to say, okay, so you can't find the job in Canada. Where else can you find the job? Where else can you advance? So I started using that new perspective to help myself plan my career.
Unfortunately, your story sounds pretty typical of what happens to many immigrants. And Express Entry caters to well-educated, young, ambitious professionals who, once granted permanent residency, believe that their experience and their background make them a perfect fit for Canadian workforce. And then they come here, and it turns out that the experience, the enthusiasm is not really in demand. What do you think is going on here?
I've had the opportunity to work with a lot of newcomers. I have seen many of the ways that their spirits are broken. And I honestly think there's a disconnection between what the federal government of Canada is expecting from the Skilled Express Worker Program and that of like the companies. I feel like the companies and the federal government are not talking to each other. Like the federal government is like, here's a great country, a great platform for you to advance your career. And especially if you go through the Express Entry program, we'll make it fast for you. You get here, you find the job of your dreams, you live your best life in Canada. And the companies are like, I don't know if I can trust a newcomer now. They don't know the way we do things. They don't know a lot of like Canadian stuff, and that's why the Canadian government decided to like basically outlaw like the use of Canadian experience as a way to reject newcomers. But companies are smart. They figured out other ways to say that. Whether it's like you don't fit the culture, or we decided to go with someone with more experience, or like those tiny little things that they tell you, it's not because you're not good enough. It's just because they wanted a Canadian. And for me, I think that's incredibly unfair. And maybe I'm speaking from a place of privilege, but even if I didn't come through the express entry worker program, if I came through another stream and I wasn't express entry, I would still want the same opportunities that Canadians have, because I've decided to leave my country and adopt Canada as my country. So of course, I expect to be accepted by companies, to be expected as a potential worker, to be expected as accepted as an employee who would bring a lot of benefits to this company. So I just think there's such a disconnect.
And what is it that you do at your job now?
I basically help newcomers with their entrepreneurship journey, basically. So when I was looking for a job, so I came and then I started looking for a job, and someone told me, like, the only way to find a job as a newcomer in Canada is to volunteer, work for free. And to me, I was like, so I did it. I started working for free at the organization that I currently have a job in. And as I was working for free, a role opened up. I applied for the role, and I was very fortunate to have a very, very gung ho mentor and ally. Like, basically tell them, like, this is the best person for this role, and so that's how I was able to get the role. I did something similar in the US before I came to Canada. And in the US, when I was doing this, I was getting paid the equivalent of 6,000 Canadian dollars for the entrepreneurship, coaching, and all of that. And then here, I'm not getting paid anywhere close to that $6,000. So for me, it was, at the time, I was like, I'm just going to use this as an in the meantime job, and I'm going to find another job. And I can honestly say that it's been 2 years and I haven't found the other job. It's not because I don't do the coffee chats. It's not because I don't do the networking. It's not because I don't have the qualifications or the certifications that they want, or this or that. It's simply because once they look at my resume, they see that I have a lot of experience in the US and I only have one experience in Canada. So to them, that's the basis for rejection. It's like, she doesn't know our system, she doesn't know how we do things here. And I also think that, and I don't fault Canadians for this, I also think that there's a little bit of a discrimination for people with American backgrounds, just because America's so boisterous. Like, I'm not gonna lie, we are a headache. I'm not gonna lie. Like, we are. Like, anybody that finds an American is like, okay, we know this person's gonna be boisterous, they're gonna be loud, they're gonna complain, they're gonna do this, they're gonna do that, they're gonna be prideful. And so I'm gonna be honest, like, I started adopting the Canadian way of thinking, and whenever I see Americans now, I can recognize them right away because they're the loudest person in the room. They're the most prideful. So, like, I see all that and I'm like, yeah, I kind of get Canadians. So there's also that fear of, like, hiring an American as well. And I've been privy to hearing those talks. So that's also there. So I don't fault Canadians for it. What I will say is that it shouldn't take a newcomer who has given up, and I'm taking myself out of this equation, but as a newcomer, if you're coming from your country, shouldn't take you 2 years for you to move into the job that you believe is worthy of your time. It shouldn't. You've uprooted your entire life. You've left your country. You've left families. You've left connections. You've left, and in many cases that I have a lot of newcomer friends, they were like, I have one of my friends, she was working in the federal government of her country, and she came here and she was working at Starbucks. And I was like, no, I would have gone back, like, gone way back. So for me, it's really heartbreaking to see that, and I honestly think that there needs to be an overhaul in the way that the federal government addresses the expectations that it gives to newcomers, and also that the federal government work with companies and help them understand, like, you need to hire newcomers. Don't be afraid of them.
As an immigrant from the US, you are bringing a ton of valuable experience, which I personally would think should be super valuable to Canadian employers. A PhD degree, diverse work experience, and most importantly, American work culture, which is associated with being responsible, hardworking, having a can-do attitude, and even willing to work longer hours. Does all this give you any advantage in the eyes of employers?
I don't think my American education matters at all in Canada. It doesn't matter at all. I'm not going to lie on this show. Um I was told that, yeah, America has its own way of doing things, and one of the people that I had feedback from whenever I did interviews here, I always asked for feedback, and they told me like it would actually be valuable for you to go to through a certification program at like U of T or Ryerson, like get some sort of Canadian credential on your resume, because American university credentials don't really mean anything here. And I get it, because in America, I think it's only 3% of the population that has a PhD. That's about 400 million people. In Canada, I think, if I'm not mistaken, it's around, I know that pretty much half of the population of Canada has like a master's degree. And for me, I moved from like being at the education's top, elite, and then moving into a country where like almost everybody that I see, one out of every person that I see on the street has a master's degree, right? So I decreased my chances of standing out, and I didn't realize that. So when I was doing my research, I didn't do that research. I just assumed that, which is really bad. I assumed that basically that the PhD that I have would be like amazing wherever I went in the world. And that proved to be half true, but I'll talk about that later. But anyways, it doesn't matter. The American education doesn't really matter here in Canada. Canadian employers want Canadian credentials, period. I think that if I keep doing what I'm doing, networking, coffee chatting, all that, I think within 5 years, I'd probably find myself at the place that I thought that I would find myself when I moved here. But that's 5 years of my life. Like I'm not about to wait for a whole country, a whole system to figure out my value. 5 years for what? Like I came in with all these credentials for a reason. Like you gave me the PR because I had all these credentials, and now you're telling me like no, you don't have enough Canadian credentials. So I started looking for for careers outside of Canada, and this is how I know that Canadians are extremely harsh when it comes to Canadian experience, because the day I decided to start looking for work outside of Canada, I sent out resumes for jobs in Europe. I got them like that. I got interviews without, like, I kid you not, I applied for a job on Friday. On the next Wednesday, I get an email from the hiring manager, not the HR person, the hiring manager saying, "You're awesome. Let's do an interview. Even if we do an interview, I can bring you in. We'll take care of the paperwork. We'll take care of the visa. We just want you to come and get started." And this was for a company out in Portugal. So this was one of many experiences like that, where I would put in an application in a company in Europe, just like that, I'd get the job. And that's when I realized, okay, so I was right about Canada. The things that they're telling me that I'm not qualified for, I'm getting director positions in Europe, and I don't have any European experience. I'm not even European. I don't have work permit in Europe. They're willing to give me a work permit. So I saw that and I was like, okay, so I was right about Canada. So it's not, I wouldn't even say it's racism. It's just discrimination against newcomers, period.
I'm sorry to hear that. It's heartbreaking that Canada doesn't appreciate high skilled immigrants like you. Do you think the fact that you are not only an immigrant but a woman of color as well exacerbate your struggles with job search?
I hesitate to think that it's because I'm a woman of color, because when you're a black woman, you don't want to immediately jump to the racism card. You don't want to say that they're racist because you want to give them an opportunity. But I will say that there have been a few companies that I've applied twice and three times to, and they've interviewed me and they've turned me down. And there has even been one company that interviewed me, went to the final phase with me, gave me work to do, like, the homework that they give you. And I turned it in, and I found out later they were using my work with a new candidate. The new person they hired was a white lady. And I was like, okay, now y'all are just being racist. That's what it was. Y'all needed my content and my intellectual property to make it look good for someone else, with somebody that's better looking for your culture at the helm. So when I figured that out, I was just like, it didn't make me mad, because that's something that as a Black woman I experience wherever I go. Even in Africa, there's racism. Like, I don't want people to think that, it's just because it's North America. No, even in Africa, there's racism. There's internalized racism even in Africa. But I don't usually, like, my first conclusion whenever I get rejected for a job, it's not because of racism. I always think it's because of a little bit because of xenophobia. It's fear of newcomers. And it's also mistrust in newcomers. So that's my first thing that I always think about. It's like, it's because I'm a newcomer. They don't see like 5 years of experience here in Canada. They only see like 1 year. They only see 2 years. So yeah. It's interesting to me though, because this is why I don't think it's racism, because when I applied to companies in Europe and I was getting accepted, I was like, it's kind of the same culture. Like, the same people are making decisions, at the helm it's white folks. So if white folks see value in me in Europe, but they don't see value in me in Canada, then it has to do with rather the fact that I'm a newcomer and I don't have enough experience in their eyes than the Europeans. So I was honestly flabbergasted that I was getting more job offers in Europe than I was in Canada. And I'm like, the Canadian system is similar to the American system. The European education system is not at all similar to the American education system. But they recognize the value that I have to bring to the companies there. But Canada's not recognizing that value. And so I was like, okay, so it's discrimination against newcomers. That's really what it is.
From your experience, how important is networking for finding a job in Canada?
I'll say, if you're watching this show thinking that your resume matters, it doesn't. It really doesn't. Who you know matters way more. And I especially think this is like, especially maybe because I'm in Toronto, but in Toronto, who you know matters way more than your resume. I promise you, this is the advice that I will give to everybody who's looking to move into Ontario or Toronto. If you know somebody, you're more likely to get into that organization or that company than if you have or don't have the qualifications. And this is something that I will say that I don't like about Canadian work culture. In the US, if you know somebody, yes, but they'll also look at your credentials. In Canada, if you know somebody, yes, they don't care about your credentials. They don't care. It's like, oh, this person knows that person, so therefore we can trust that person. And then I would say the only time they care about your credentials is if, like, you know somebody and you're from another country and you don't have enough Canadian experience. Then they're like, oh, we care about your credentials. But if you know somebody, you have 2 or 3 years of Canadian experience, you're more likely to get in like that. Like, they'll make everything go fast and you'll be in the organization. And I honestly don't like that about Canada. I think that and I think that it has to do with the fact that a lot of people are educated. So like, every time you're seeing a resume, there's a master's on there and there's a PhD on there. So it's like, the person can do the job, but you want to know if the person is trustworthy. So therefore it makes more sense for them to go with, like, do you know someone, or did that person mention someone in their cover letter that's already working here? So that's the way the system works here. And I honestly feel like it's not fair, especially when it comes to minorities such as myself. It's not fair because minorities like myself, we have a harder time connecting and networking with people within companies than anybody else, right? So for me, I don't have access to the same people because I'm a Black woman. Like, I'm not invited into spaces where a lot of the people that are ruling these, not ruling, but like that are controlling these companies are white men. So I was like, I don't have access to meet these people of privilege because as a Black woman, I'm not let into these networks. Like, there are networks out there that I don't know anything about because, hey, I'm a Black woman. Nobody has told me anything. All these access points that, people have into the hidden job market, which is a great big thing here in Canada. We don't have the same access. So it sort of hurts the chances if you don't know how to network.
What is your personal experience of networking in Toronto?
I have networked with a lot of people, and I gave up. I was like, no, I'm no longer going to, not even waste my time, but I don't think that it's worth my time networking so that you can help me get a job in your company. What I did start doing was networking to find friends. And for me, that helped me a lot more. It took the pressure off of me to get something out of that, like that relationship. And it just gave me like the ease of mind to go ahead and just make friends in Canada. And I think when I arrived at, that was like after I came back from my country, when I arrived at that perspective, I was really happy because that's something that's just in me. Like, I just want to be friends. I'll figure out the money part later. So it took that pressure off of me. And I can't lie and tell you that it helped me get a job. It didn't help me get a job, but it did help me get great friends in Canada. So yeah.
What are the advantages of having a mentor, and how can a mentor help you in your career?
I have a mentor, and this is something that I would advise everybody who's thinking about Canada. You need a mentor and you need an ally. So those are two different things. A mentor will tell you like how to navigate the system and how to make sure that you're making the best of your experience here in Canada. And an ally will literally send out your resumes to their friends and be like, you need to hire this person, you need to hire this person, and they'll basically put on their running shoes and run the race with you. That's an ally. So I'm lucky to have both in one person. So she's been amazing. She's helped me with first of all, finding a job here, and then also reminding me that I'm worth more than the job that I currently have. And I think that's really important because when you're a newcomer and you get a job, because you've been looking for so long, you're so grateful that you have a job at least, that you forget that your dreams are to go higher. So you get comfortable, right? And my mentor, she's always reminding me, stop being comfortable. Get out there. You need to keep going. You can't stop just because you're not finding the job of your dreams. You need to actually keep going. So that constant encouragement has helped me to start looking for careers outside of Canada.
And how did you meet your mentor?
When I was in the US, I was researching settlement agencies, and I reached out to one. I called one, they didn't pick up the phone, and I sent an email out. And then my mentor at the time now had called me at the time. I didn't know she was going to become a mentor. But she called me back and she said, oh, when you get here, just come here and make sure that, you let us know that you've just arrived so we can help you. And then I did exactly that. When I got here, I reached out to the settlement agency. Later on that day, she looked at all my files. She looked at my credentials. And she realized that because the settlement agencies only have in the meantime jobs, like working at Starbucks or working at all these, in the meantime job places. She looked at my resume and she said, if they give you any of these jobs, don't, because you're worth more. And she said, if you want, I can be your mentor and I can help you figure out how to navigate the system in Canada. But I see so much potential in you, and I honestly think that you can run this whole settlement agency without a problem. And so that's when I realized this is a lady who sees me and she sees my worth. I immediately accepted her as my mentor, and I said, I'd love to be your mentee. Can you please help me? And I started asking her questions. So since that day, I've been her mentee, and I think now we're friends, but I don't want to say friends because she's old enough to be my mom. So I don't want to be disrespectful because she's an elder. But yeah, that's how I found my mentor. And then other than that, I would say that the other mentors that I have are around my age, and I found them through friendship. So I've met some people who've been here for 10, 20 years, and they've been able to help me, and that's because they knew one of my closest friends, and one of my closest friends was able to introduce me to them as well. But like I said, mentors are not allies in the sense that a lot of them will not feel comfortable sending your resumes to their bosses. But you do need a mentor, and you also need an ally.
How do you look after your mental health, and what kind of routines did you adapt to keep yourself in balance?
First of all, I moved here alone. I have family here, but the family that I have in the U.S. did not move with me. So I live alone, and it's very much hard when you move to a new country by yourself. You haven't established any network before you moved here. Like, as much as I was doing the research to come to Canada, I wasn't doing the research to build a community before coming to Canada. And the family that I have here, but first of all, they're amazing, but they live in another city. So I don't have someone in the immediate vicinity of where I live to just go and like cry on their pillow or anything like that. So it was really hard on my mental health. I was depressed from December of 2018 to the day I stepped foot in my country, which was June 2019. I was depressed. I was clinically depressed. I was physically depressed. And I was going through a lot during that time. And I had a job. I mean, the job was fulfilling the goal of like paying my bills, but I just felt like I had committed career suicide. So I was extremely depressed. And I didn't have anybody to turn to. And I didn't want to burden my mentor because I didn't want to come across as someone who's leeching too much of like their energy and their time. And I didn't know how to, like, how like when you get here, they give you the resources, like how to find mental health, all that. They gave me all those resources. And when I realized when you're depressed, you don't know how to look for that information. You just don't. Like, it's like you're so depressed that even reaching out for help is hard. So for me, it was extremely hard for me to deal with my mental depression. And I'm really glad that I went to Togo. I went to Africa, because the day I stepped my foot in the airport, I was like, yes, Nancy, you're amongst your people. You can finally break down and cry. And I did. That first night in Togo, I broke down and I cried. And I think I cried because I had been through so much in the U.S. as a Black woman, and then went to Canada thinking that it would be, a better experience, and encountered pretty much the same stuff. And then I went to Togo, and, I was like, okay, at least here I'm amongst people that love me, and I can just shed that burden. I can shed that backpack of weights. And I shed it, and I felt really good. I ate really good food, which is very important when you're depressed. I got a lot of sun, which is not here in Canada. And so by the time I came back, I was completely healed. I forgot how great it is to literally like sleep under the sun in beneath a palm tree as a shade. Right? So like that stuff like helped me get out of that depression. It really did heal my body. I lost a bunch of weight when I came back, and so that was really, really helpful. So after that, I realized like, okay, you got to tackle your mental health. So when I came back here, I started putting in place different systems to help myself, like keep my mental health in check. Started taking vitamin D capsules. I started trying to go out more, especially in the summertime. I reached out to more friends. I tried to find more friends. Remember, I was trying to do the networking. Then I decided, let me just switch over to friends. And that helped me a lot. I put a lot of self-care rituals into place. So I started doing my hair more often. So before I went to Togo, I do my hair like every 3 months. So I only did my hair twice. But when I came back, I was like, self-care. I need to do my hair once a month. So every month I do my hair. I change it up to change my style. I would buy new creams for my skin. That was really important for me as well. And I would also take days off of work. Because before that, I was doing the American thing where it's like, oh, if I show them that I'm worthy and then like I'm putting as much time in, they'll eventually give me a raise or they'll eventually move me higher up. And when I realized they were not interested in doing that, I was like, okay, that's cute. I'm going to take my days off. So I started taking more days off. I started going to work when my body felt like going to work. So if that meant that I was late, then I would call in, tell them that I was going to be late, and that's it. Like deduct from my paycheck. Like my mental health is more important. And also, like I said, you need friends in Canada. What I will say about Canadians is that it's very hard to make friends with Canadians. When I say Canadians, I mean people who are born here. But it's so easy to make friends with newcomers. It's so easy to make friends with newcomers who've been here for 20 or 30 years because they get it. They really do get it. Like, I think that if you need help in Canada, stop trying to go to a Canadian who was born here. Go to someone who moved here 20 years ago. They will love on you. They won't lie to you. They'll give you the best advice and they'll check up on you. And I appreciate that from the newcomer population in Canada. They get it. So that was a big part of my mental health routine after I came back, which is to become closer to the friends that I do have, to find new friends in the newcomer community, and also to devote time to developing those friendships. So finding time to go out with them, doing coffee chats with them, having dinner parties with them. Because before I was just devoting my time to finding a job. So I was networking for the job. I wasn't networking for friendship. So that helped me a lot more. And now I can say that whereas before I didn't have a community, now I have a community of 5 or 6 people that I can call on if there's anything going on with me, and they'll come right away. They won't say like, "Oh, I'm at work." No, they'll come right away. So yeah. A friend of mine told me that there's a Beninoise community, and so there's like a group of them on WhatsApp that I joined. So I know that I can reach out to them as well. The Ghanaian community, I'm currently like, I have one friend from Ghana. They're a little more active like in business, especially with the Nigerians as well. So those communities I have access to as well. So those are nice. But I think it's more important that I build my own tribe. So for me, like I'm filling it with newcomers from all different countries. So yeah.
Let's talk about volunteering. You're also a human rights activist. What is it that you're doing?
Yes, I am. I didn't even talk about that. So one of my I call it my Batman jobs, which means that's what I do after dark, is to write research articles or do work on human rights throughout the world. I do have I have a lot of work that I've done with migration nonprofits in the US. So nonprofits focus on migration policy, undocumented immigrant policy, all of that. And I still do a lot of work in that arena. But I would say that my human rights activism comes from the point of view that there's no one on earth who's perfect, and everybody has a human right to move around the world to find safety. That is a human right. So my work is around that exact statement of like, everybody should have access to move around, to establish themselves in a new country because their country is no longer safe. And so that's something that's really important to me. I still dedicate much of my time to it. And, as someone who's an immigrant twice over now, because I've been an immigrant in the US, now I'm an immigrant in Canada, I think it's important that I see where my privilege comes in, and then I also see where my privilege doesn't come in. And where my privilege doesn't come in makes me scared because I'm like, I'm a whole PhD here and I'm suffering from these things, and then I wonder like, how is a woman with 3 kids with no education going to suffer? How is a Black woman with no kids and no education and no family going to suffer? So that's something that runs through my mind every day, because I work with newcomers. I see so many different circumstances, and I always ask myself like, when are all these countries going to see that it is a human right for you to want safety? It is human right for you to move from your country to a new country and want this country to accept you, want this country to protect you, want this country to hire you, so that you can feel safe. So those are things that I ponder upon every day. And I still volunteer for a lot of nonprofits in the US. I'm still grateful that I can work with a lot of nonprofits in the US around immigration. I try to volunteer my time as much as possible with organizations that are helping migrant students and migrant populations. One specific organization that I'd like to mention is schools, and this is something that's really important to me. As part of their board, the work that they're doing is basically to help teachers and school administrators understand the needs of migrants, students, and how to help them basically like survive and thrive in the US. And so that's something that because I was an immigrant student, I saw a lot of Lord. Let's talk about the education system in America. First of all, it's racist, but that's besides the point. The second thing that the education system of America is elitist, right? So if they see that you're coming to school every day with the same clothes, or if they see 1 ounce of weakness in that child, because everybody in the school system is a child, they bring down that child. And I remember in high school, I had a counselor who was assigned to me, who knew that I was an immigrant, and she would tell me every day, you're never going to go anywhere. Like, you're an immigrant. Like, what do you expect to achieve after high school? Like, and then I had one friend, the counselor told her, you need to go get pregnant because that's the only thing you can do. Like, those type of experiences are experiences that are going on in America every single day. I'm not sure about Canada. I can't speak to Canada, but they're going on in America, and they're going on with immigrant populations that nobody cares about. Nobody's like talking about it, and those are things that I'm very passionate about.
In the US, racism exists on both individual and institutional level, where discrimination is systematically enforced through laws, policies, practices, and norms of society. What can you say about racism here in Canada?
I've done that comparison, and I've done it in a research capacity probably because of the academic in me. So one thing that I will say is that Canada is good. Canada is racist at the individual level. At the institutional level, it's not as racist as America is. America, on the other hand, is racist as, oh my God, the institutional level, the racism there is suffocating. It's terrible. At the individual level, it's not as much as Canada. And here's why I say that. In America, if a manager doesn't like you because you're black, I promise you the manager will still hire you. Why do I say that? Because they're more worried about the bottom line. So they'll give you the opportunity to prove yourself. And even if they don't like you, they'll eventually start to like you because you're doing a great job for the company, right? That's America. Canada, if the hiring manager doesn't like black people, they won't hire you at all. And they will blackball you as much as they can in the company. I've seen this happen in Canada. And, you know, like Canada has like I think it's like the Human Rights Violation Code. Not that. There's something here, I forget, I'm sorry, the name is blanking out, but basically, if you feel like you've been discriminated against, you go to that, you file a report, and, you know, they'll look at it, they'll investigate it. Canada is beautiful in that sense. Like, there are so many, like, institutionalized ways to, like, file reports on people that you think are being racist and discriminatory. You can do that here in Canada. You can't do that in America. Right? There's nothing in that at that level. There's nothing from the government saying that you can report this, you can report that. I learned the other day that if you're a victim of a hate crime in the US, you're not even supposed to report it to the police. Most Americans don't know that. You're supposed to report it to the FBI. How do you report a hate crime to the FBI when you can't even find the information to the FBI, right? So like that's the institutionalized racism, like they're trying to be good, but it's not there. But like here in Canada, there's a system for you to report these things, for you to follow up on these things. And I promise you, like, Canadians will go after discriminatory people. They'll go after racist people if you report it, right? But there's also that individualized racism here in Canada that is horrible. I've had personal dealings with racist Canadians. They're nice. They will smile to your face. They'll be like fake kind to you, and behind your back they're destroying you the entire time. And to me, that is demonic. I'm not even gonna say it's horrible. It's demonic. In the U.S., I will say that if you meet a racist person, you know that person is racist in the U.S. Why? Because they'll tell you, they'll be like, I don't like black people. They'll show you their gun. They'll give you all the warning signs like, don't mess with me. I don't like your type. In Canada, we have racist people in the HR department. We have racist people who are approving certain applications. We have racist people in the academic departments. We have racist people everywhere, and they have this facade on of like, yes, I love black people, but when it comes down to what you're doing, you actually hate black people. And I know this is a problem with Canadians, because I myself, I think I told you a little bit about this, but I have a neighbor, an upstairs neighbor, and I live downstairs. So I come out every day. I usually come out with my roommate, and we check the mail. The mail is in the front where the upstairs neighbor's entrance is. So I'm checking the mail one day. I come from the back, and I go to the porch to check the mail, to check the packages, because I live there, of course. And my white upstairs neighbor is there, sees me checking everything, sees me pick up a package, look at the name, realize it's not mine, put it back down, take my mail, and I go for a walk. So the whole time I have earbuds in my ears. And the whole time, I didn't even know he was doing this, but he looks at me, decides to follow me for 20 minutes. And I didn't know he was doing this because I had earbuds in. So I'm walking for 20 minutes. Then it's time for me to turn at the light. So I'm turning right, and I see from the side of my eye, like, my neighbor, because I had seen him on the porch, so I knew he lived there. Remember, I didn't ask him, like, what are you doing on my porch? So he sees me and he says, I've been talking to you for the past 20 minutes. And I'm flabbergasted, because I'm like, did this guy really follow me from my house to where I was walking? So first of all, I'm scared because I don't know what he has in his hand. I don't know if he's going to shoot me. That's my automatic reaction, because I'm from America and I'm from Texas, where white people hide their guns, and it's like, this guy might shoot me. So I'm looking at him and I'm like, okay, it's Canada. It's fine. So there are people outside, because he's screaming at me. Now there are people outside looking at both of us, and he says, yeah, I've been trying to find you and follow you for the past 20 minutes to ask you if you're the one who's stealing our packages. So I'm shocked. I don't know what to say. And he asked again, are you the one stealing our packages? And I said, no, I'm not. I live there. And he said, what do you mean you live there? And I said, yeah, I live there with my roommate. We live right below y'all. And he said, well, I've never seen you before. And I said, yeah, just because you haven't seen me doesn't mean I don't live there. And I said, I always go up to the porch to check the packages and also to check if I have mail. And he said, I've never met you. And I was like, well, do you have to meet me in order to believe that I live there? And I said, if you want, I can call the landlord or I can call the police. Which one do you want? So that's when he calmed down. I asked him, wait, so you've been following me for the past 20 minutes? You couldn't just wait until I came back to ask me these questions? You couldn't call the landlord? There are better ways to do this. And he said, well, I just didn't feel like I've been having my packages stolen this whole time, and I just really wanted to catch the perpetrator. And I was like, wait a minute, you're not even police. In my head, I was thinking you're not even police. And then he makes a joke that I think is extremely horrible. He's like, me and my girlfriend were on the phone making a game out of catching you. And I'm like, you and your girlfriend were on the phone the whole time while you were following me, while you were stalking me for 20 minutes, making a game out of catching me, a black person, and you don't see there's a problem? You're joking about this? And at that point, I walked away. The next day, I tell the landlady, and I tell her, you have got to introduce us because I no longer feel safe. And I will say the one thing about Canada is that, for example, that experience that I had here, if it had happened in the U.S., I probably would have gotten shot. I would say that the American would not have stalked me for 20 minutes. I think the American would have probably stalked me for 5 minutes and then shot me. Whereas the Canadian stalked me for 20 minutes and made a game out of it with his girlfriend. So, I mean, it's funny. Most, and I will say, most people, when they think of Canada, they're like, Canada's not that racist. Let me tell you, Canada is just as racist. Most often, like, you just won't see it, but it's there. Yeah.
Can you describe a person for whom Canada would be a perfect place to live?
Yeah, so it didn't meet my expectations. I'm still grateful to be here. I will say that Canada is a great place to be. Let me tell you what Canada is great for. Canada is great if you have family. It is a great place for family. Canada is great if you are just out of, like, if you just got your bachelor's or you just got your master's. I wouldn't say it's great for people with PhDs. Just got your bachelor's, just got your master's. You're looking to jump into the field of work that you want to be in. It's amazing for that. Like, I promise you, you'll find entry level work in that arena that you're going into. I'd say for anybody who's like me, who has experience, if you have 10 years of experience, if you have a PhD, if you're well established in your company, or you're well established in your country, don't look to come to Canada thinking that you will continue. Most likely what you'll have to do is restart. And if you're okay with that, great, do it. Like, you will not regret coming to Canada for that reason. But if you're not okay with restarting, if you're not okay with people telling you, like, you don't have enough credentials, even though you have surpassed the credentials that are needed, I would say, like, come here with the expectation that you will have to restart. I don't want to tell you, like, don't come here. You can still find other stuff. Canada is also great for building yourself anew. If you want to build a new image of yourself, if you want to, especially if you're looking for a peaceful place to live, Canada is amazing. There's so much peace. That's why that's why America has a problem with Canada. There's so much peace here. And you don't have to worry about your government screwing you over. Like, the government will not screw you over here. You don't have to worry about, for example, one of the biggest problems for me when I was in the US was, like, I was always afraid, like, no matter what credentials, like, not credentials, but no matter what papers you have as an immigrant, they can be taken from you like that. Canada won't do that to you. Once you're a permanent resident in Canada, you're a permanent resident.
Would you say Canada has become your new home?
I already know it's worth it being here in terms of me, myself, and my health, and, like, me as a young adult. So for that reason, I want to stay in Canada, but my friends are telling me, like, you need to give Canada at least 5 years before you make a decision to leave. If in 5 years you're not able to secure the job of your dreams here, then yeah, Canada is not the place for you, especially if you're as career focused as me. So I would say that it was my own fault for coming here thinking that I could, like, go from the job that I had in the US to, like, a higher job or a similar job here. It was my own fault for thinking that. I would say if you're thinking that, scratch that out of your mind. It's possible. It's possible within 1 to 2 to 5 years. So right now what I'm thinking is I'm going to give myself 5 years. And when I say 5 years, I mean, like, the years that are left within the 5 years. And see if I can continue with the friendships, continue with the networking, and see if I can eventually land at the spot where I think is worth my time. And if I can't do it, then hey, I'll go to Europe where, my resumes are accepted within 3 days. So, yeah, I mean, I think Canada is a great place to live. I really do. Like, if somebody were to tell me, like, which would you choose to live the rest of your life? Hands down, without a doubt, Canada. Because here, even though they're racist, they won't kill me in my sleep.
What do you like most about Canada?
The travel, oh my gosh. Canada is so beautiful. Like, it's gorgeous. From, like, the East Coast to the West Coast, Canada is gorgeous. So I just came back from the beach. And I went to the beach in Toronto here, and it literally looked like a beach out of the Caribbean. And I was like, wait a minute, I'm in Canada, and there's, like, a Caribbean beach here. So it's beautiful. There's forests, there are parks, there's Banff, there are so many beautiful natural formations, and the northern lights, and all these things. So I would say, like, if you come to Canada thinking, like, what is there to see? There's so much to see, so much. And I love that a lot of these things to see are products of nature. If you're coming here thinking there will be nothing to do, trust me when I say at least you'll be able to see the most beautiful sights.
What would be your advice to immigrants working in your field and newcomers in general?
In my field, so my fields are academia, data science, and political science, and all that good stuff. I'd say if you're coming to Canada, my number one advice is go to Ottawa. Don't go to any other city. Go to Ottawa. If you are interested, especially if you're in like that realm of politics, human rights, government, international relations, even academia, go to Ottawa. Don't waste your time anywhere else because that's where the jobs are for those people. Even myself, I'm headed towards Ottawa. If you're interested in data science, anything tech, Toronto or Vancouver. I would almost say Toronto. The one thing I'll say about Toronto is there's more competition here. There's less competition in Vancouver, but I don't know what the pay is, if the pay is comparable to Toronto. So that's the thing. So that's what I would say to everybody in my fields as my number one advice. My second advice is if you're like me and you have a PhD and you're thinking that you're going to come to Canada and find the job of your dreams within a few months to a year, it's not going to happen. It's going to happen over time. So I would say, like, don't have a timeline for yourself. Come here. If you're like me, if you're very well educated, if you have lots of experience, expect them to say that they don't want you. It's not personal. It's just there's this fear of taking risks in Canada. Like, they don't want to take a risk and hire someone who has a different system, who's coming from a different system, who has a different way of thinking. They just don't want to take the risk. Keep looking for those jobs. But if you find yourself becoming depressed because nobody wants to give you the opportunity to prove your worth, or nobody wants to give you the opportunity to do the same work that you've been doing in your country this whole time, don't think that it's personal. Just think that, for now they don't want you. Just take your time. See what else you can do. And also, I'd say this. If you're coming to Canada, you can't find a job. You've given the system 3 years. You still can't find a job. Please start looking for other jobs out of the country. Please make Canada your base. Like, make Canada the safe place that you come back to. And it really is a country that will look after your interests. Even if the employers don't want to look after your interests of getting a job, I promise you that the government will always take care of you. That's the fact. If you're coming from Togo, remember that you're black. Don't think that Canada is not racist. They're going to be racist. But don't let that stop you. That's definitely, like, I've never let racism stop me. I've been able to achieve everything in spite of racism. So don't let that stop you. Don't even keep that in your mind. Like, take it out of your mind, but also have it in the back of your mind. Like, don't let it be the first thought, but also don't forget that. And then also reach out to other communities, that are adjacent to Togo. So Ghanaians and Beninois and Nigerians, and see how you can become part of those communities as well, so that you can help yourself, because you do need a community here. And because there's not a lot of Togolese people, I would advise you to find other African communities that you can be a part of to help yourself as well. If you're coming from your country, see if you can keep your job there and work remotely from here. That'd be great, especially when you're looking for a job. It's like a great way for you to keep earning money. And then also, I was actually really happy because I always had my consulting firm in the US, so I was able to keep working from my consulting firm while I was looking for a job here.
Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, and if you have any questions, please leave them down below.